right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. And today on the show, we are talking about Tetris, the true story of the creation of the popular video game Tetris, one of my favorite games of all time, from director Jon S. Baird, starring Taron Egerton, and out now on Apple TV Plus. And let me just tell you, I loved this movie. I'm such a big Tetris fan, but for whatever reason, I didn't know what to really expect with this movie, but I really loved it, and I'm really excited to talk about it. Joining me today, we've got coming back to the show, M.N. Miller, and we have a great conversation, lots of good puzzle pieces to talk about, and just a fun conversation. Before we get to it, I do want to remind you, as always, to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. You can follow us on social media at PiecingPod. Join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we continue the conversation about all the movies we talk about here on the show. And don't forget to check out our Patreon, the Produced by David Rosen Patreon, where I post bonus and advanced content for Piecing It Together, Awesome Movie Year, and my music career. And it's been a little dry on there for the last couple of weeks, but I'm about to start posting more stuff on there. I got a new bonus episode of Awesome Movie Year coming in a couple of weeks. We got a new episode of Piecing It Together that's not out yet. That's hitting later today at the time of this recording. And a bunch of music stuff on the way. So check it out, patreon.com/bydavidrosen. And we appreciate the support. So, with that said, let's talk about Tetris. All right, joining me to talk about Tetris, the movie based on the creation of the game Tetris, is M.N. Miller. How you doing, M.N. Miller?
Doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. It's been a weird week. Between this and John Wick, and I just saw Dungeons and Dragons yesterday. Yeah, it's been a great week for seeing some movies. A lot of really good, really fun stuff. So I'm excited to talk about all these movies as we get into Tetris here. Are you a Tetris guy? Do you like Tetris?
Yeah. Occasionally, I'll get into a Tetris mood. Then and again.
All right. Okay.
You know?
I should say up front. Yeah, I should say up front, I am a huge Tetris guy. Actually, at the right before the pandemic hit back in 2020, I was training for a Tetris tournament here in Vegas.
Of course you were.
And
how'd you
do? Well, the pandemic happened and it got canceled, and I think it might be a little rusty now. Although I still play a lot.
We need to make a movie on
getting back. I need to make a comeback. Yeah, start training and eating raw eggs and the whole thing. Yeah, so so I was so excited for this, even though I had no idea what kind of direction they were gonna take to tell this story. But yeah, I've been a Tetris guy ever since 1989 when the Game Boy came out, and basically when this whole story happened.
I never owned a Game Boy in my life.
Wow.
I was never bought one.
Yeah.
You feel bad for me?
I kind of do, honestly. You had to be there. I was at summer camp, Jew camp, as it were, and playing my Game Boy just constantly. While everyone else was playing sports, I was back in the bunk just playing Tetris or the Super Mario version that they had.
Yeah.
And
really, my parents didn't love me, so yeah. Thanks for bringing up all those triggers today, Dave.
Yeah,
appreciate
we're going to get really deep into some emotional baggage
on my therapist tonight.
The Tetris episode. All right, let's start getting into some puzzle pieces, and we'll talk about this movie as we're going through it. What do you have for your first piece?
I found this surprisingly hard for some reason. Honestly, I think one that really struck out to me was Bridge of Spies.
Oh, okay.
The Tom Hanks. Just going behind the steel curtain,
trying
to negotiate the release of in this way Tetris, almost like a hostage under communist Soviet Union, and
Sure.
I really found it fascinating, the dogged determination of Hank here, going behind the lines over and over, would not take no for an answer, getting punched, beat up, all for the video game Tetris, where Tom Hanks was trying to, free a spy.
Sure.
Here, we were trying to free the greatest handheld video game of all time.
Absolutely, yeah. And the Hank character is He's really interesting, and I mean, I'm sure there's some, artistic liberties being taken here, but like, it's a great
No,
character.
never, not at all.
Never, it couldn't possibly be.
Yeah,
Uh,
that race to the plane at the end was authentic. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It always happens that way. But yeah, no, he's a great character, and yeah, like the tenacity is like I think that's going to show up in a bunch of these puzzle pieces actually. But
Yeah.
that's kind of what you come to a story like this for, and so it's just like a great ridiculous version of that kind of story. So I like that though. I like Bridge of Spies as a puzzle piece. That's a good one to kick it off with.
I know.
I'll go for my first puzzle piece.
Amazing. Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah.
You're off to a great start
Yeah.
here. Um, I'll go with. So I actually just rewatched this for my other podcast, Awesome Movie Year, and I just thought it was like a perfect piece to bring into this. Ben Affleck's Argo, the Best Picture winner for 2012. Which, of course, he has a new movie coming out called Air, which is also one of these true story of a brand, a famous, brand.
Yep.
And so like it kind of fits right in there as well. But Argo, especially, like the scary foreign country and trying to get out with, whatever it is that you're trying to get. In that case, it's the hostages. In this case, like we said, it's Tetris, the game, as well as the game's maker. And you eventually get to that big climactic scene at the airport and, totally dramatized, of course. And then, you get the bad guys who pretend like they can't speak English. And so you get scenes like that. And then the reveal that, oh, they could speak English the whole time. Like, all of that is just some great like crowd pleasing movie making. And in my rewatch of Argo for Awesome Movie Year, I was like, this is just a really fun, great movie. Even though that's a much heavier movie than Tetris is, they both are just like real crowd pleasers. And we're recording this before Tetris actually comes out, but I'm wondering if it's going to connect, and I mean, obviously it's not going to be our Best Picture winner, but like I'm wondering if it's going to connect in a way where it's like just a big fun crowd pleaser, because I feel like it should be.
God willing, David, that's going to
Yeah.
win Best Picture, of course. But
we
no,
can only hope.
absolutely. But this is much more lighthearted take.
Yeah.
A lot more fun. But yeah, but the same dogged determination, trying to get people out. Then the political maneuvering too, which is another big aspect of this movie that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what do you got for your next piece?
So the star, Taron Egerton, he has a history of doing movies with a director, I believe produces a studio called Marvin. They did a movie called Eddie the Eagle. And I feel like this actor is really, and most actors probably feel this way, but a couple of his movies, and this one in particular, talk about that tenacity, that dogged determination, the dreamer, not at all grounded, wanting to accomplish something that no one else has or can. And in that movie, he plays a British ski jumper, and they haven't had one in like a century. And no matter how many times like he was not good at it, he kept falling, but he kept getting up every single time. And that really reminded me of Hank here in Tetris, because he would be punched, kicked, threatened. He kept going to that meeting every single day, flying out back to Tokyo and back to Russia again. So that really reminded me of I think the person who produced the movie and the star of the movie, I think built on that kind of mindset for Tetris.
Yeah, for sure. It is, a similarly tenacious character, like you said, and there's a line in this movie in Tetris where one of the Russians says about him, "He's dumb, but he's honest." And he's so like American in that way. Like he's just like I'm
No
just
humility.
I'm just here and I want what I want, and that's that. And it's a great character, and Eddie the Eagle's a great character too, and a great movie.
I'm 2 for 2. I'm batting 100%. Thank you, David.
You're doing a great job here.
Crushing it.
Yeah, you're killing it. I'll go with The Big Short. How about that for a puzzle piece?
Our first crossover. Go ahead.
There we go. You had it too. Good. Yeah, I mean, especially the opening 30 minutes or so, where it's a lot of people talking to each other and getting out like insane amounts of exposition about the history of video games and all of these companies and characters and the people who made the game, and why it's so difficult to get it out of Russia, and all the facts and numbers and dates and lots of stock footage and everything going really fast. I was a little unsure of like, is this what the movie is going to be for the whole time? But then it turns into something, different as it continues forward. But certainly in that beginning, it felt a lot like the way The Big Short is just boom, boom, boom with all of its information.
Oh, that's a great point. I looked at it more as more of this holistic experience based on The Big Short, and at the time, communist Soviet Union. So in The Big Short, you have this understanding of capitalism and its failure and how it might fail. So the group can capitalize off it. Where you cannot get Tetris out of the Soviet Union without understanding communism, and at the same
Right.
time, both. I know this is out there, but you have both worlds like beginning to fail. Capitalism
Right.
showed a failure, and communist Russia was failing at the time. It was ending.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really thought The Big Short kind of, I'm sure there's been movies before that, but I thought Tetris really was influenced by that movie in a bit of a way. Obviously in
Yeah.
a more comic way, but or lighthearted way
Yeah.
than The Big Short, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, we have a little bit more distance from, everything going on
Yeah.
at the time of Tetris versus
Yeah.
The Big Short, which is happening all over again right now. So
Oh, knock on wood.
awesome.
Which is great.
So what do you have for another puzzle piece?
So more of I'll go with the director. So Baird, he directed a movie called Stan and Ollie.
Hmm.
And so he kind of took like this personal, he finds like personal, I think, insights into movies about famous either characters or famous companies or just like famous games like Tetris. He really finds this the grueling circumstances of how something came about, the creative, how things are created, and creative
Hmm.
genius. And I thought he really did that here, like with the grueling side of trying to acquire Tetris, and also showing Alexi's struggles to invent that game and to get it out there and keep it alive. So that's
Yeah.
one aspect I thought, looking at the director and his previous work. Um,
Yeah.
he really tries to find that creative outlet, and how grueling it is at times to and also with popularity and fandom, how that relates to um you know mass culture.
Sure. No, absolutely. I actually haven't seen Stan and Ollie. I always wanted to. I just never got around to it. But I could imagine like, so for my next puzzle piece, I'm gonna actually just jump right on top there and go with last year's The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, the
Oh,
Nicolas
yeah,
Cage
fun.
movie. I imagine there's like a lot of that like kind of bromance, like the guys getting together and having a good time kind of vibe in that Stan and Ollie with the two of them. I don't know because, like I said, I haven't seen it, but certainly with The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, you have that. And here, we've got between Alexei and Hank. That is like part of the joy of the movie is seeing the two of them become friends by the end, and everything they go to. And then, as we know, if we didn't know going into the movie from the postscript, like they then went on to found the Tetris company, which has now continued to make new versions of Tetris for years and years, like up till today, it's still going. So it's kind of their own origin story between the two of them. And the other connection I had to The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent is, the idea of making a movie about the creation of Tetris just seems so out there. It's like you're only going to get one chance to do it right. And the idea of a movie where Nicolas Cage plays Nicolas Cage, there's no way you're going to get two movies like that. It's like you get one chance to get it right, and if you don't, it's over with, And so both of these movies really kind of nailed it.
I think you're just trying to name drop Pedro Pascal in The Last of Us for social
Yes.
media searches right now.
There you
That's, I
there you
think, your main
go.
thing right now.
Yes,
No,
you're
okay.
absolutely right. That'll get me the clicks. That's what I need.
No, that's
So, yeah.
that's a great pick. I didn't think of that one.
Right on, right
That's why
on.
you have the podcast.
There you go. You got it. You got it. Yeah, I do need to get to Stan and Ollie though one of these days. But what do you have for your next
So
one?
I'm going with your classic video game documentary. Have you seen Atari Game Over?
No, I have not.
I saw it on Netflix. It's not there anymore. It's one of those small. I think it's like 50 minutes. Not even that long, but it's still considered a feature. It's basically about how Atari, failed eventually, and you know how Atari in the movie Tetris was trying to acquire
Yeah.
Tetris. I can acquire their own version of it at some point, but they lost it. But it really shows like the nostalgia of video game culture, and especially now looking back at Tetris in such a fond way as we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the main focus of that was that notorious ET video game that was created and the search for copies of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they thought there was a bunch of copies in a dump in New Mexico. And so they were
Yeah.
going through that, like, kind of like Indiana Jones and the Holy Grail trying to search for this video game.
Yeah.
Um, and just the whole nostalgia effect of Tetris. It really, the psychology of like nostalgia in Tetris, like looking back on something so fondly, and it really, I don't know, I can't describe it, but the nostalgia aspect of 80s video game culture was really, I thought, prevalent in Tetris, and I felt that with Atari.
Yeah.
The Atari
I
got
gotta watch that. That would be interesting. And by the way, I have that. It was their like side company was called Tengen. I have that version of Tetris for Nintendo that they
really.
put out. Yeah, it's somewhere in my closet full of Nintendo games. But yeah, I was just so into video games at that point, and I had freaking everything. But that story is really interesting, and I'm gonna again, like I did with your Stan and Ollie, I'm gonna just kind of like jump right on top here and combine another puzzle piece here because I was thinking of the Pirates of Silicon Valley, the 1999 TV movie about the creation of Apple and Microsoft,
Oh, I never
and
saw that.
yeah, it was great. I haven't seen it since it like first came out, but that movie kind of, if you were like a real like nerd, into these kinds of tech companies and stuff like that, you read little magazine articles like, for example, with Nintendo and the creation of Tetris, like, I'm sure I read like a Nintendo Power article or Game Pro or Electronic Gaming Monthly, one of those magazines, and had little bits and pieces of this story in my mind, just like I knew little bits and pieces of the Apple and Microsoft stories before watching that movie. And so seeing these characters come to life, like I had no idea going into this movie that Howard Lincoln of Nintendo would be a character in the movie,
Yeah,
and like I knew about that guy though from all those magazines for all those years and stuff. And so it was like it's one of those things where you never expect like those to be characters in a movie, but here we are. And as you're bringing up the nostalgia there with that the Atari Game Over, like the nostalgia is just huge for someone like me. And like most people get their nostalgia out of, oh, there's a new Ghostbusters movie out or whatever. But for me, I was a gamer. And so like for me, this is all nostalgia. And so definitely it kind of like awakened that part of me for sure.
no, it can be surreal growing up with these things, and then you see it like portrayed in a Hollywood movie or TV show.
Yeah,
It's just like this. You never thought you would, get to that point in your life when you start making movies about stuff you were playing when you enjoyed as a child. Uh,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
and this isn't a pulse piece. It just popped in my mind when you brought up the TV movie, but like the TV show AMC. I know we don't do TV shows, or you don't do
You,
TV shows.
you could throw one in every once in a while.
Like
So if you
*Halt and
want
Catch
to,
Fire*, the AMC show that was about the birth of handheld or like personal computers. It's like almost now too like the birth of the Game Boy in this movie, which was a huge deal at the time.
sure.
Really
You
reminded
know,
me of that.
what's funny is like obviously that show was very popular, but I never saw it, and I had no idea that's what that was about.
It
Um,
just popped in my head. Yeah, it's
wow,
yeah.
that could actually be interesting. I might have to get back to that one of these days.
Yeah.
Um, right on. Well, what do you have for your next piece?
So there's another documentary called Indie Game, the movie. You ever heard of this one before?
I always wanted to watch that. I never did though.
So what I like about this, it's almost like they go into how video games are an art form. So it's like a piece of art. And there's this one, I forget the name of the game, but um, the creator talks about how it's an artistic expression of
Hmm.
growing up with anxiety, nervousness, and isolation and loneliness. And thinking about Tetris, if you put Tetris through like that Cold War Steel Curtain lens, you can really look at like what it could be considered in an expression of the political times that Alexei was living under.
Yeah.
This thing about Tetris, like, the steel curtain, like putting a wall up, walling yourself. Soviet Union was walling itself off from the rest of the world. And
Sure.
what happens during the game?
You're
Constantly trying to
breaking
put
down the
that wall
walls.
coming up.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so that's how and this is a 2012 documentary, and even like apparently I researched this. The theme song of Tetris is based on a Russian poem that's translated to the Peddlers, and then a Japanese composer redid it, and it's basically it's very anxiety ridden, made into a very anxiety ridden song. And I just imagine like the anxiety many of the citizens must have felt under that type of regime.
Yeah, absolutely. And they really kind of like hammer that home in this movie. Like as fun as it is and as funny as it can be, like, you kind of get a sense for, just how difficult it would be to live under that. And so it
I mean,
definitely,
he made the game like linking together parentheses,
yeah,
like creating the blocks. This
yeah,
guy, it's incredible, like how this was started
absolutely.
under the most basic computer technology to what is now like what sold like a 500,000,000 copies or something
Yeah,
like that.
I'm sure honestly, it's probably more than that at this
Yeah.
point, but, yeah, it's crazy how successful it is, but, yeah, no, great one, and that's another movie that, like, really I've always wanted to see, and, I think it was, actually Braid maybe was the game that, the developers, like, who's being interviewed during that movie, but,
Mhm.
yeah, I remember when that came out, and I gotta go back and check that one out. Um, I'll throw in here Burn After Reading, the Coen Brothers film, as a puzzle piece, specifically to Taron Egerton's Hank. Uh, we kind of already talked a little bit about his tenacity and how kind of ridiculous of a character he is, and just getting himself deeper and deeper into this incredibly dangerous situation, but like kind of almost failing upwards in a way to like, survive that situation. And yeah, I just thought a lot about the Coen Brothers Burn After Reading and just how ridiculous with like the backroom deals and the government stuff and the character being kind of too dumb for his own good, but also that that dumbness kind of getting him through and
Yeah,
it's
failing
just really
upwards. Yeah.
fun. Yeah, failing upwards, exactly. It's just a really fun way for a character to kind of make his way through and actually succeed by the end. So yeah, that's one I was thinking about for
In a
sure.
lot of ways, Tetris to me is like an 8-bit legal western almost, because like people are just making up the rules as they go along, trying to steal the product, jumping in and out,
Yeah.
backdoor deals, and
Everyone's screwing each other and everybody's out for
yeah,
their
like
own.
backstabbing each other.
Yep.
They didn't really get into legal minutia of it all, but it was just very entertaining how like no one seemed to know who owned what, and at a time I can't imagine that happening now.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, great pick.
Right on. What do you got next?
So this movie popped in my head after I was talking to a fellow critic at Ready Steady Cut. Shout out to M. The
Mhm.
Social Network.
Sure.
So basically, because this Tetris and handheld video games, and even like at home personal consoles was kind of like a burgeoning industry. It wasn't like today these huge conglomerates, almost like niche companies. And social media was on the verge of like just breaking out at the time. And that legal battle between trying to whoever invented or acquired the rights to Facebook.
Mhm.
That really reminded me of Tetris in that way. These three, companies, not three, Microsoft, Nintendo, trying to acquire the rights to Tetris, and it's not like worldwide, regional, handheld, like all these complex versions of the game that they can
Yeah.
market. That was definitely a movie that popped in my head about that battle.
Definitely. And I already mentioned Air, but this year somehow we're also getting Flamin' Hot about the creation of Flamin' Hot Cheetos. We're getting Blackberry about the creation of the Blackberry. I feel like the social network is going to be all
Great movie
over.
ideas are not dead. You make one about flaming hot Cheetos.
Supposedly it's great. I can't wait to see
I
it.
can't wait to
So
watch it.
yeah, so
I can't imagine the screening for that. They got to give out huge bags of that stuff, I'm guessing.
oh, hell yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, well, another one in that same vein, The Founder, about the creation
Oh,
of
I love
McDonald's.
The Founder. That's a great pick. I should have thought of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
I'm gonna lie and say I thought of it. Yeah.
yeah, and again, it's like just like kind of a great crowd pleasing version of a true story drama, and with just the right amount of comedic elements, and it just like with Tetris, it's something where it just seems like such a silly thing to make a movie about, but it works. It works because somehow there's actually a story to be told and a great performance at the center of it with Michael Keaton. So yeah, I think The Founder fits right in with all of these movies. I feel like as I cover, Air next month and maybe Flamin' Hot and Blackberry, I'll be talking about The Founder and The Social Network again and again. So
The Founder is like one of the most underrated. It got totally lost in the shuffle. It got pushed to February of that year, and that was one of my favorite Michael Keaton films. And the way he overtook that company was so like
mhm.
creative and simple and yet ruthless. Um, and you think about like companies and like Tetris or just video game culture, and how McDonald's is very American economic culture in this
Yeah.
country, and it's like the birth of fast food, this huge company, and um, definitely the way how he stole that company out from underneath the McDonald's brothers is a fascinating tale.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any others?
That's all I had.
All
What do
right.
you have?
Well, I've got two more to throw in here. So first of all, and this one kind of is maybe a little bit going back to some of the stuff we already talked about, but Little Miss Sunshine. I thought Egerton's Hank, like, again, just doing everything he can to succeed for the sake of his family, and like in the face of everything possibly going wrong, and continuing to just push forward and push forward.
Another dreamer, yeah,
Yeah, a dreamer. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
a failed one though.
Yeah, for sure. But I had that one. And then the last one, and this mostly applies to the climax where things get kind of magical realism. Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Things start getting a little bit 8-bit, and we get like the 8-bit car crashes and the music. I swear during that sequence, I was like seriously sitting there thinking about bumping this up to 5 stars. That's how much I loved that chase.
I
Like I
just
was like, this is the best. Like I was so excited right now.
I was really thinking of all those like you brought up Argo, like these
Mm,
chase scenes to escape, and like this the creative freedom the director used. Like, why make the same old chase scene? And they really
right.
caught the theme of Tetris with that. And like I bet a lot of people are gonna probably didn't like that scene, but I loved it, and I thought it was just like it's movies, have fun with it. Tetris is fun. It's a serious subject, but
Exactly.
have fun with it. And I just love that scene. It was such a creative breath of fresh air, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
And it's like, why not? Why not? Like, let's just make a fun movie. It doesn't need to be another like stuffy, like
So what? The
serious
communists are
drama.
threatening your life, trying to
Yeah.
blackmail you that you cheated on your wife with a communist KGB spy. Let's have
Yeah.
fun with the movie. Yeah.
That's right. Absolutely. So I will read down the list of puzzle pieces we just talked about, and we'll get into some closing thoughts. We talked about Bridge of Spies, Argo, Eddie the Eagle, The Big Short, Stan and Ollie, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, Atari Game Over, Pirates of Silicon Valley, Halt and Catch Fire, Indie Game the Movie, Burn After Reading, The Social Network, The Founder, Little Miss Sunshine, and Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Yeah, a lot of video game stuff, of course. A lot of these, tenacious guys out there just trying to do something, trying to build something, trying to create something that'll last.
Try and make history.
That's right.
Make their
Absolutely,
mark in the world.
absolutely. You know, I would say as far as like closing thoughts, like back to that central friendship that's born between Alexei and Hank. I just think that that's so much fun, and it's paced out well in a way that kind of feels natural, and it was really fun to watch, and I think that that's part of what I really liked about this movie.
I wish they explored that a little more, because
Hmm.
obviously under the circumstances they couldn't. I just see like what happened more at the end after, especially when he goes to America, like what his life turned out to be.
Yeah.
Um, but the movie to me was just so much fun. Um, it really had some suspense to it too. You just, like it was exciting. It was funny. It was just like this burst of fresh air, this creativity of a movie like I never thought I would see on the big screen, like a movie about Tetris. a movie about Flaming
Right.
Hot Cheetos, a movie about, a BlackBerry that's coming out soon, and
Yeah.
the downfall of that. It was so much fun, this movie, and I know it's on Apple, TV Plus. I hope people really embrace it and try to find it. And besides Coda, like movies on that streaming service tend to stay there
Yeah.
and not be talked about. So I hope people really find
Yeah.
this movie and just enjoy it and feel that nostalgia that we felt going
Yeah.
forward and keep talking about it.
Definitely. And one more thing, the Lorne Balfe score, early favorite score
Yes.
of the year for me so far. So obviously we got a long ways to go, but he absolutely crushed this score. It's a great score, and then all the little video game elements that's in there, the chiptune stuff is just perfectly spaced out, just enough.
Everything about it is fun and like creative, and just like
Mm-hmm.
unashamed, like just embracing that type of video game culture. Like I watched a movie, the Netflix movie Luther, Fallen Sun. It had this
Mm-hmm.
score that was beautiful, but for a horror movie, I didn't think it was kind of out of place. And
Yeah.
everything in this movie really worked well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, right on. I think that does it for Tetris. Is there a movie you watched recently that you would like to recommend to our listeners?
Oh, I think you enjoyed it too, Dungeons and Dragons. I went in with the lowest expectations, but that movie was so much fun. Chris Pine is hilarious. I did not know he could be that funny. That's
Yeah.
another game where they just embraced. I've never really played that game, but it seems like they really embraced the whole culture behind the game, and really really enjoyed it. I really
Yeah,
enjoyed that.
it's an interesting time for video game based movies or like things around video games. Like they're actually turning out to be good. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Super Mario next month. I'm kind of excited, a little nervous, but we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Would you recommend anything coming out soon?
Oh boy. What else have I? Well, I mean, I'm about to record an episode on Inside, which won't be out until the film hits streaming. So go see Inside, and then you'll be ready as soon as the episode comes out. So there you go. Where can people find you and your writing?
I am the senior contributor for the best gosh darn website in the world, Ready Steady Cut. I also
Mhm.
can find me at Hidden Remote, In Session Film, Music City Drive-In, and Film Focus Online. Or go to Rotten Tomatoes. I'm individually approved over there, and that's
Awesome.
where you can read my work.
Beautiful. Well, thanks as always for doing the show, and I look forward to getting you back again sometime soon.
David, it was an honor. Thank you so much for having me on.
I'm Josh Bell.
And I'm Jason Harris, and we co-host a podcast called Awesome Movie Year.
Each season, we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year.
We deep dive into these specific years, and we pick out why they were such great years for films. We go over the biggest hits, the biggest flops, the best pictures, some personal picks, some cult classics.
Years we've covered in past seasons include 1994, 2003, 1977, and 1984, and we've got all of film history to look forward to. So check us out at awesomemovieyear.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, thank you so much for listening to Piecing It Together. If you enjoy what we've been doing, I got to do my outro. If you enjoy what we've been doing here on the show and our whole puzzle pieces format of talking about movies, make sure you're subscribed wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. And of course, if you really enjoy what we do, you could rate and review us. 5 stars would be awesome over on Apple Podcasts. It helps to make sure that more people see the show and more people check it out, and we'll keep doing the show. You can also follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. Join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we continue the conversation about all the movies we talk about here on the show. And I told you at the top of the episode about our Patreon, the Produced by David Rosen Patreon. Check that out if you'd like to support us in that way. But we're just happy that you're out there listening. So thank you for being out there and continuing to listen to the show. So, with that said, let's close this out with a piece of music like I always do. And I was digging into my games projects folder of my external hard drive with all of the games that I used to make music for. Lately, in the last like 10 years or so, I haven't done any game work. But when I was first breaking into working on music for film and TV and all kinds of other stuff, I was also doing a bunch of video games. And this was for something called Airship, which, quite frankly, I don't even remember what that was. I don't remember what it looked like, how it played, if it ever came out. I think it was like an iPhone game, but I don't remember. It's from 2012, it says, which is only 10 years ago. But my brain is mush, and I don't remember doing this. But it sounds pretty cool, and I have the music sitting here. So this is from a video game called Airship. Hope you enjoy it. We'll be back with more Piecing It Together real soon.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.